Well, today I want to reflect on something that I think initially sounds counterintuitive, and that's the power of doubt. Because in leadership, we often treat doubt as something negative, something to overcome, something to hide, and something that suggests weakness, indecision, or lack of confidence. But I think this is the wrong way of looking at it. And increasingly, I think if we go all the way back to Descartes, to understand why Descartes is best known for this phrase. I think, therefore I am. But before we get to that part, I wanna start somewhere else. What we really see is that Descartes questioned what he'd been taught. He questioned what he could see. He questioned what he thought he knew, and he asked, "What can I actually rely on? What is actually certain? What assumptions need to be stripped away before I build something meaningful on top of them?" Now, it's important to point out that Descartes did not use doubt to become cynical, but he did not use doubt to stay stuck, but he used doubt as a method. He doubted in order to think better. He doubted in order to find a much firmer foundation. And that for me is where this becomes highly relevant in leadership today, because many leaders and many leadership failures do not come from a lack of confidence, but they come from too much confidence too early, built on assumptions that were which were probably never tested. We see this in strategy and capital allocation, in transformation programs, sustainability commitments. We see it in technology decisions, and increasingly also how organizations are dealing with disruption, and specifically also then with AI. And a model looks precise, so we trust it. A forecast looks polished, so we believe it. A strategy sounds compelling, so we commit to it. But confidence is not the same as truth. Precision is not the same as accuracy, and certainty is not the same as judgment. And I think this is the why doubt matters so much. Modern leadership research talks about the power of doubt, and I think it gives us a very useful way to reframe what leadership requires in complex environments. And the best leaders are not the ones who pretend to know everything, but the best leaders are the ones who know how to work with this uncertainty. They're able to say, "I don't know yet. I don't know enough yet, but let's test this." Or, "I have enough clarity to move forward, but I'm still open to challenge. This assumption matters, so let's understand what happens if we're wrong." And this is not weak leadership. This is very mature leadership. And the problem is that many organizations still reward the performance of certainty. So we reward the person who speaks with confidence. We reward the leader who gives quick answers. We reward the executives who say this is the way forward, even when reality is much more complicated. But in today's environment, that kind of certainty can be very dangerous, because we're not leading in a simple world. We're leading through overlapping uncertainty, geopolitical, regulatory, technology, AI, climate risk, shifting markets, stakeholder pressure, social trust, talent expectations, capital discipline. And these things don't move independently, they interact. And when systems interact, simple answers can become very, very risky. So leadership today is not about removing that doubt, it's about professionalizing doubt. You could refer to it as, you could refer to it as professionalizing doubt, because in other fields, doubt already has a legitimate role. In audit, we call it professional skepticism. In science, we call it peer review. In law, we test evidence. In risk management, we ask what could go wrong. But in leadership, doubt is often pushed underground. People don't raise concerns because they don't want to be seen as negative. Executives hide uncertainty because they think they must project confidence. Boards sometimes challenge too late, once the strategies already gain momentum, and before long, the organization is no longer really testing reality, but it's defending a position. And this is where the danger lies. A healthy leadership system makes room for constructive doubt early enough that it matters. And I think this is where these three types of doubt leaders need to get much more comfortable with. The first is self-doubt. Now, self-doubt can be destructive if insecurity or what's often referred to as imposter syndrome. But healthy self-doubt is something different. Healthy self-doubt says, I may not have the full answer. I may have blind spots. My experience is useful, but I may also be but it may also be anchoring me in the past. And this kind of self-doubt creates humility. Humility not being weakness. Humility is accurate self-awareness. It's the ability to say, I need feedback. I need other perspectives. I need people around me who will challenge my thinking, not just confirm it. The second type of doubt is situational doubt. This is doubt that asks, what are we assuming? Is the data good enough? What needs to be true for this plan to work? What might be missing? Where are we confusing optimism with evidence? Where are we mistakenly taking activity for progress? And this is particularly important for strategy and transformation because many strategies don't fail only because they were badly executed. They failed because the assumptions were weak from the start. The market wasn't ready, the consumer behavior didn't shift, the culture didn't absorb the change. Capability gaps were underestimated, and organizations believed the story, but it didn't test the foundations. And then the third type of doubt is systemic doubt. And this might be the hardest, but also the most important. Systemic doubt asks us, what is it about the organization that prevents truth from surfacing? Are people telling leaders what they need to hear or what they think leaders want to hear? Are they rewarding challenge or are they rewarding agreement? Are our incentives encouraging long-term judgment or short-term performance? Are our governance structures creating visibility or merely producing reports? And this is where boards have such an important role to play. A board should not only ask whether management has a plan, but it should ask whether the assumptions behind the plan has been tested. It should ask what would change management mind. It should ask what dissenting views were considered. It should ask whether the organization may be overconfident, and it should ask whether the culture allows uncomfortable information to travel upwards. Because if doubt cannot travel upward, risk will eventually travel outward to investors, to customers, to regulators, to society, to your broader stakeholder and ecosystem. Of course, now I'm not arguing for endless doubt. That's not leadership either. Doubt can become paralysis, it can become anxiety, it can become a way of avoiding accountability. But at the same point, leaders must decide. They have to make decisions around capital allocation, direction, how to commit resources. They must act. And again, yeah, the purpose of doubt is not to avoid action. The purpose of doubt is to improve the quality of the action. So there's a balance. Too little doubt leads to hubris, too much doubt leads to paralysis, and disciplined doubt leads to sound judgment. And that is what we need more of. Better judgment, more ethical, informed, resilient judgment, especially in an AI-enabled world. We know AI can create the illusion of certainty. It can present information with fluency and confidence. It can produce answers that look complete, but as leaders, we still need to ask, where did this come from? What is missing? What are the assumptions? What are the ethical implications? And what human judgment is still required. So technology may accelerate decision making, but it's not removed, and we shouldn't not remove the need for leadership. In fact, it actually increases it because the faster we move, the more disciplined our questioning needs to become. So when I think of Descartes and modern leadership, the connection is that Descartes used doubt to search for certainty. Modern leaders should use doubt to search for better judgment, not perfect certainty, because in business and governance and perfect certainty never really exists, but better judgment. And that requires leaders to become much more comfortable in saying, Let us test, let us challenge the assumptions, invite dissenting views, understand risk, not to confuse confidence with evidence, to let them move forward but remain willing to learn. And that for me is responsible leadership. It's not the absence of doubt, but it's disciplined use of doubt. Because the leaders who never doubt may not be strong. They might simply be simply have stopped learning. And organizations that stop learning eventually stopped adapting. So I think perhaps the one of the biggest leadership challenges today is not to appear more certain, but it's to be more thoughtful, more curious, more humble, more disciplined. And I think the Enlightenment gave us the reason as a tool for progress. And if I think of Descartes gave us doubt as a method of finding firmer foundation, the modern leadership now requires us to bring both into the boardroom, into the executive team, into the way that we make decisions. Because doubt, properly used, is not a lack of leadership, but it's really one of the foundations of responsible leadership. Again, thank you for listening, and we'll talk soon.